Success destroys more people than failure ever will. Not because success is cruel, but because most chase the wrong version of it. They wake up every morning running towards something they never questioned, never defined, never claimed as their own. A job title, a house with too many rooms, applause that fades faster than it came. And still, something inside them whispers, this isn't it. The tragedy isn't in working hard. The tragedy is in working hard for a life you don't actually want. You don't need more motivation. You need clarity. Not a better routine, a better reason. Because the most dangerous prison is the one built with your own habits. Change doesn't begin with a new year or a rock bottom. It begins the moment you choose to stop performing and start becoming. Tiny shifts, quiet, almost invisible décisions. Like standing up straight when no one's looking. Like deleting a number you know is toxic. Like waking up 20 minutes earlier, not for work, but for yourself. These aren't hacks. They're choices, and choices compound. You don't flip a switch to become someone new. You turn 1 degree at a time, until one day, you're facing a different direction. There's no secret, no seminar, no morning routine, no perfect mentor can change your life if you keep avoiding the mirror. The real shift begins here, in how you think, how you speak to yourself, how you move through the world when no one's clapping. You don't need a breakthrough. You need consistency. You need presence. You need to master the small, quiet disciplines that shape who you are, even when no one notices. And that starts with one truth. You're not stuck. You're just addicted to a version of yourself that no longer fits. Success is not achievement. It's alignment. Most people chase a blueprint they never wrote. They follow a version of success downloaded from childhood, culture, or comparison. They move through life ticking boxes that never belong to them. They climb a ladder only to find it's leaning against the wrong wall. There is no power in achievement without self-awareness, because no trophy can compensate for an unlived life. No paycheck can silence a heart that keeps whispering, I wanted something else. Real success begins the moment you reclaim the definition. Not the one your parents wanted for you. Not the one your friends applaud. Not the one that looks good in photos, but the one that makes your soul exhale. Sometimes, success looks like building something massive. Sometimes, it looks like walking away. It may be the quiet joy of living slow, deep, and rooted, not fast, loud, and hollow. It might be a life where your mornings belong to you, where your calendar isn't a battlefield, where you don't need to explain your worth to anyone. But here's the truth. You can't chase what you haven't defined. If your definition of success is borrowed, your life will feel borrowed. You'll wake up with someone else's urgency, carry someone else's burden, and wonder why you feel so empty, even when the world calls you accomplished. Ask yourself, who am I trying to impress? Would I still want this life if nobody could see it? If success were silent, would I still pursue it? Because the only kind of success worth keeping is the kind that feels right in your bones. The kind that makes you proud behind closed doors. The kind that costs you nothing you weren't meant to lose. Redefine it. Reclaim it. Because until you do, every effort will be a performance. And you weren't born to perform. You were born to become. You don't rise above your life. You rise above your mind. Because every decision begins in the dark, in the space between a thought and an action. The truth most people avoid is this. Your mind is not a mirror. It's a filter. And it can lie to you, loudly, convincingly. It will tell you you're behind, even when you're on time. It will say you're not ready, even when you are. It will replay every mistake until you believe you are the mistake. But here's the shift. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who chooses which thoughts to feed. Most people manage their time with planners, alarms, and schedules. But they leave their thoughts unchecked like an open gate in a storm. and then they wonder why the day spirals before noon. You want peace? Start with thought hygiene. Clean it up. Watch what you let. Repeat. A single thought repeated often enough becomes a belief. A belief, repeated long enough, becomes your identity. So don't just organize your day. Organize your mind. Choose the inner language you want to live inside. Speak to yourself like someone you're responsible for healing. Because you are. When the voice says, I can't, question it. When the voice says, they're ahead of you, delete it. When the voice says, what's the point? Whisper back, growth. Thoughts shape posture. Posture shapes energy. Energy shapes the room you walk into. You don't need to fake confidence. You need to stop rehearsing defeat. Don't fight your thoughts. Replace them. Plant better seeds. If your mind is a garden, most people are growing weeds and wondering why their life feels overgrown. But one sentence, one practice, one gentle redirection repeated daily can pull the entire mind back towards center. Try this. When you wake up tomorrow, don't reach for your phone. Reach for a better question. Not, what do I have to do today? But, what kind of person am I becoming today? Not, how fast can I move? But, how deeply can I stay present? Because the mind is not a factory. It's a compass. And unless you manage it, you'll end up somewhere you never meant to go, perfectly on time, utterly unfulfilled. The first battle is won before the sun rises. What you do in the first hour of your day determines who you allow yourself to be for the rest of it. Not because of superstition, but because the morning is where momentum is born. You don't need a perfect routine. You need a ritual. Something small, sacred, and repeatable. Something that tells your nervous system, I choose intention, not reaction. Most people begin their days in chaos. Eyes barely open. Thumb already scrolling. Mind already sprinting toward a fire they didn't start. They wonder why the day feels disjointed, why they feel behind even when they're on time. It's because they never paused to claim the morning as theirs. You don't need an hour. You need 10 minutes of stillness. 5 minutes of clarity. A single decision that reminds you, I am not the noise. I am the one who listens to it. Maybe your ritual is journaling a place where you leave behind yesterday and meet yourself anew. Maybe it's walking in silence, not to burn calories, but to return to breath. Maybe it's simply making your bed, not because it's impressive, but because it's a small declaration of order in a world that often feels like chaos. You're not building a morning routine. You're building an identity. One choice at a time. Your ritual is not for productivity. It's for sovereignty. A way to remind yourself that the day begins with you, not with the world's expectations of you. So before you check your calendar, check your soul. Before you serve the world, serve your mind. And before you run route, the most dangerous bully you'll ever face doesn't live in your school, your job, or your family. It lives in your own mind. That voice, the one that says, you're not enough. The one that whispers, they're better. The one that turns every mistake into a verdict and every weakness into a weapon. You hear it when you fail. You hear it even louder when you succeed. But here's the truth. No one taught you. That voice isn't your enemy. It's your echo. It repeats what it's been taught. From childhood, from culture, from comparison. And if you don't retrain it, it will run your life on a loop. You don't need to shut the voice down. You need to teach it new lines. No one else will be with you in every room you walk into, every decision you make, every fear you face, except that voice. So make it an ally. When it says, you always mess this up, teach it to say, I've failed before, and I learned. When it says they'll judge you, teach it to say, their judgment is not my truth. This is not affirmation fluff. This is mental reprogramming, because the words you say to yourself become the lens through which you see the world. Speak harshly to yourself, and you'll feel like life is harsh. Speak gently, and the world softens not because it changed, but because you did. Your inner voice is a muscle. Train it. Give it vocabulary that reflects strength without shame. Give it silence when it spirals. Give it patience when it panics. And give it truth, especially when it lies. You don't need more praise from the world. You need less cruelty from yourself. Because the moment you begin speaking to yourself with kindness, you begin living a life that no longer depends on validation to feel worthy. There is a voice inside you, not the loud one, not the anxious one, not the one built from everyone else's expectations, the quiet one. It doesn't shout, it doesn't beg, it waits for stillness, for silence, for space to be heard. It's the part of you that knows before you know. That subtle knowing in your chest when something feels wrong, even if it looks right. That pull towards something irrationally meaningful even when it makes no sense on paper. And the tragedy is, most people bury it. They don't silence it out of spite. They just forget it's there. They trade that whisper for logic, for approval, for checklists and certainty. And they wonder why they feel off, even when everything appears on track. But alignment doesn't live in your to-do list. It lives in your direction. You could be achieving, impressing, even winning. But if you're walking away from your own soul, no amount of success will make you whole. Following your inner compass won't always make sense. It may ask you to change careers, leave a relationship, move to a city where no one knows your name. It will not come with applause, but it will come with peace. And peace, my friend, is the sound of alignment. You don't need to explain your direction to anyone. If it makes sense to your soul, that's enough. But here's the catch. You can't follow a compass you never consult. You need silence. You need solitude. You need space in your day where nothing is expected of you, not even productivity. Because stillness is not laziness. It's where the signal gets strong again. So if the noise has become unbearable, turn inward. Not to escape, but to remember. Your direction isn't out there. It's already in you. And it's been waiting for you to listen. Readiness is a myth. A comforting delay we tell ourselves while life quietly passes by. The truth is, no one ever feels ready. Not the artist before their first canvas. Not the leader before their first failure. Not the human staring into a change they didn't choose. You don't need permission to begin. You need to begin in order to become. The world trains you to wait for clarity, for confidence, for certainty. But growth doesn't wait. It meets you halfway after you move. Every shift, every breakthrough, every transformation you admire started with someone who acted before they felt ready. They didn't feel brave. They felt terrified. But they stepped anyway. And here's the paradox. Clarity comes from action. Confidence comes from repetition. Direction comes from walking the path, not standing at the start. You can't think your way into courage. You have to bleed for it, sweat for it, show up trembling, and still speak. There is no perfect time. No ideal condition. Just a decision. Today, I begin. Maybe it's sending that email. Maybe it's showing up to the room where you feel like a fraud. Maybe it's pressing publish, even when your voice shakes. Do it scared. Do it messy. Do it now. Because momentum isn't born from motivation. It's born from movement. And once you really start, the path will shift beneath your feet. You'll find tools you didn't know you had. Support you didn't expect. Strength that only reveals itself to the one who dared to act without a guarantee. Don't wait for readiness. Create it with your courage. Discipline doesn't begin in the gym or in the office. It begins in the unseen moments when no one is watching. The decision to get out of bed when the comfort says stay. The decision to put the phone down when your peace says pause. The decision to keep your word to yourself, even when no one else will notice. That's where strength is built. Most people wait for motivation, but discipline is not about how you feel. It's about who you are willing to become. Tiny acts, repeated daily. That's it. That's the whole secret. You brush your teeth. You lock your door. You do these things not because you feel inspired, but because they matter, because they build something. So what if you treated your growth the same way? Read one page, hold one plank, write one truth, drink one glass of water, honor one promise to yourself today, no matter how small. You don't need to change everything. You need to choose one thing and do it like it's sacred. That's what discipline really is, not punishment, but devotion. And here's something to carry with you before the day ends. What's one small action I've been avoiding that I could do today without excuse? Not because it's easy, but because it builds trust in the mirror. Don't wait for the mood. Let the discipline shape the mood. Because every time you keep your word, even in the smallest way, you become someone worth believing in. Fear is not the enemy. Comfort is. Fear at least tells the truth. This matters. Comfort, on the other hand, whispers, stay here. It's easier. But nothing grows in comfort. Nothing shifts. Nothing awakens. The version of you admire, they're not fearless. They're just familiar with fear. They've sat with it, moved with it, worked beside it. And if you're waiting for the fear to vanish before you begin, you'll wait forever. The real question isn't, what if I'm scared? It's, will I move anyway? Because courage is not the absence of fear. It's the refusal to be controlled by it. You want to change your life? Do something that scares you a little, just a little. Sign up for the class. Say what you've been holding in. Show up to the room where you feel small. Yes, your voice might shake. Your hands might tremble. But so what? Every time you do what fear told you not to, you reclaim a piece of your power. So let me ask you right now, today, what's the smallest thing you could do that makes your stomach flip just a little? Is it a conversation? A click? A yes? A no? Whatever it is, do it. Not to impress. Not to prove. But to remember, you are not breakable. You are becoming. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you begin to decline. Arrogance whispers, you know enough. Wisdom replies, there's more. You see, life doesn't reward the ones who claim to know it all. It rewards the ones curious enough to keep asking. You can have degrees, titles, experience. But if you lose your ability to learn, you stop growing. And when growth stops, so does life. Humility isn't about shrinking. It's about remembering that every person, every failure, every moment has something to teach you. That barista who gets your name wrong, she might hold a lesson in grace. That child who asks why might be the mirror to your own forgotten wonder. That stranger's story might be the sentence that unlocks something inside you. Stay open, because the world doesn't owe you knowledge. You have to seek it. Dig for it. Stay hungry for it. Read books from people you disagree with. Ask questions you don't yet know how to answer. Surround yourself with those who make you feel small, not in worth, but in wisdom. And most of all, stay willing to be wrong, because being wrong is the cost of becoming right. So ask yourself, right now, where have I stopped being a student not because I know enough, but because I've grown too proud to keep learning? Write it down, then do something about it. A student never stops. A master never forgets what it means to begin. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. Most people wait for motivation to come knocking. But here's the truth. Motivation is unreliable. It doesn't show up on rainy days. It doesn't answer when you're tired, lonely, or buried in doubt. But discipline does. Discipline says, we show up anyway. We write even when the words don't flow. We train even when the body resists. We build even when no one is watching. Because the real transformation happens in the days when you least feel like it. When your excuses sound most reasonable. When giving up feels like self-care. When comfort calls your name in a soft, convincing voice. That is where identity is forged. And here's the emotional truth most won't say. There will be days you break. Days you cry at your desk. Days you stare into nothing and wonder, what's the point? And in that silence, if you listen closely, you'll hear a whisper. Not from the world, not from your timeline, but from within. Keep going. Not because it's easy, but because you said you would. There's power in that. Not in the loud wins, but in the quiet consistency. The days you show up for your future self, even when your present self is screaming to quit. And if you want something to remember, here it is. Discipline is choosing to become someone your future self won't have to heal from. Suppose. Breathe. Now ask yourself, what's the thing I need to do especially today because I don't feel like doing it? Do that. Not perfectly, just honestly. And if all you do is show up, you've already won a battle most people lose before they even begin. Motivation is a spark. Discipline is the fire. Most people wait for motivation to come knocking. But here's the truth. Motivation is unreliable. It doesn't show up on rainy days. It doesn't answer when you're tired, lonely, or buried in doubt. But discipline does. Discipline says, we show up anyway. We write even when the words don't flow. We train even when the body resists. We build even when no one is watching. Because the real transformation happens in the days when you least feel like it. When your excuses sound most reasonable. When giving up feels like self-care. When comfort calls your name in a soft, convincing voice. That is where identity is forged. And here's the emotional truth most won't say. There will be days you break. Days you cry at your desk. Days you stare into nothing and wonder, what's the point? And in that silence, if you listen closely, you'll hear a whisper. Not from the world, not from your timeline, but from within. Keep going, not because it's easy, but because you said you would. There's power in that. Not in the loud wins, but in the quiet consistency. The days you show up for your future self, even when your present self is screaming to quit. And if you want something to remember, here it is. Discipline is choosing to become someone your future self won't have to heal from. So pause. Breathe. Now, ask yourself, what's the thing I need to do especially today because I don't feel like doing it? Do that. Not perfectly, just honestly. And if all you do is show up, you've already won a battle most people lose before they even begin. Amateurs wait to be discovered. Professionals decide who they are and act like it long before the world notices. If you only show up when someone is watching, if you only deliver when applause is promised, if you only believe in yourself when others do, then you're building a house on sand. A professional doesn't fake it. A professional forms it. They carry themselves as if they already are what they're becoming. Not out of ego, but out of integrity. You want to be a writer? Then write. Don't wait for the book deal. Don't wait for the muse. Show up like it's your job. Because eventually, it will be. You want to lead. Then lead starting with your own habits, your own tone, your own posture, when no one is around. Amateur d'able. Professionals commit. They invest in the tools before the payoff. They say yes to the boring reps, the lonely hours, the invisible days. And no, you don't need a title to begin. You don't need permission to take yourself seriously, but you do need consistency. You do need to treat your calling like it matters now, not someday. Because someday never builds anything. Only today does. So, ask yourself, if I already believed I was the real thing, how would I behave today? Would you speak more clearly? Would you send that email? Would you organize your workspace, dress sharper, ask for what you need? Pick one. Do it. That's how the shift begins. And one day, someone will ask you, when did it all change? And you'll remember this moment, when you stopped pretending and started becoming. The fastest way to change your life is to change your capacity, not your potential, not your talent, your capacity, what you can actually do. You see, inspiration without ability becomes frustration. Vision without skill becomes regret. That's why every dreamer must also become a builder. And builders sharpen tools. The world doesn't just reward passion. It rewards those who pair passion with preparation. You want more options? Build more skill. You want more impact? Sharpen your craft. And no, it doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be yours. Whether it's graphic design, writing, coding, speaking, negotiation, finance, the skill itself is secondary. What matters is this: are you learning or just looping? Are you creating new muscles in your mind or just flexing the same ones because they feel safe? The uncomfortable truth? Most people plateau, not because they've peaked, but because they've stopped learning. So here's your shift. Become a student again. Pick one skill, one area, something that makes your life bigger, not smaller. Enroll in the class. Buy the course. Block out 30 minutes. Not to escape your life, but to expand what's possible within it. And don't ask, what if it doesn't lead to anything? It already does. It leads to you becoming more useful, more confident, more prepared for the moment that's coming. Because make no mistake, the opportunity you're dreaming of might show up tomorrow. The question is, will you be ready? You were never meant to do this alone. The myth of the self-made man, it's just that a myth. Every giant stood on someone's shoulders. Every breakthrough had a quiet mentor behind it. Every strong soul was, at some point, held up by another. Your environment is not neutral. It either nourishes you or depletes you. It either reminds you of who you are or keeps you stuck in who you were. So look around, not just at the people who know your name, but the ones who speak to your potential. The ones who ask better questions. The ones who challenge your excuses. The ones who don't just celebrate your wins, but sit with you through the silence. Those are your people. And if you don't have them yet, it's time to seek them out. Join the room where you feel slightly out of place. The one where you're not the smartest. The one where your voice shakes when you speak not from fear but from reverence. Growth begins at the edge of your comfort zone, but it accelerates when you're surrounded by people who've already crossed it. You don't need a crowd. You need connection. Deep, real, grounded. Because the right people don't compete with you, they activate you. They remind you that you're not crazy for dreaming big. They see you clearly, even when you forget who you are. So, take inventory. Who in your life makes you feel more alive? Who makes you shrink? Who holds space when you're breaking? Who only shows up when you're shining? Write it down, then choose. You don't have to cut everyone out, but you do have to stop watering dead roots. And maybe, just maybe, it's time you stopped trying to do everything alone and started letting someone walk beside you. Perfection is a moving target. Every time you get close, it moves again. That's how it keeps you stuck, forever adjusting, always measuring, never arriving. But progress is different. Progress honors the path. It doesn't ask if you did it flawlessly. It asks if you did it anyway. One of the greatest shifts you'll ever make is realizing that forward is enough, even if it's slow, messy, or smaller than you hoped. You don't need to be perfect. You need to be present. You need to notice what moved, what changed, what tried. But most people miss this moment. They look at the gap, not the gain. They stare at what's missing, not what's been built. So here's a question for you. Are you measuring your life by what you've perfected or by how far you've come? Because the truth is, you've survived days you thought you wouldn't. You've shown up when no one clapped. You've healed from things that no one even saw. That matters. So start tracking your progress. Not with a scoreboard, but with a quiet pride that says, I'm not who I was. Celebrate the tiny wins. The day you didn't give up. The hour you focused without distraction. The one time you chose compassion over anger. Progress isn't loud. It doesn't always post well on social media, but it builds silently until one day you look around and realize you've become someone steady, someone grounded, someone you can trust, and that is worth celebrating. The fastest way to fail is to demand immediate results. The fastest way to win is to stop needing them. Real change doesn't rush. It roots. It's not built in 30 days or 90-day challenges. It's built in silence, in seasons, in circles. You grow, you doubt, you fall, you rise again and again. But most people quit too soon. Not because they weren't capable, but because they confused difficulty with defeat. See, we live in a world of dopamine and deadlines. Everything is urgent. Everything is now. But the soul doesn't move like that. The soul unfolds with time, with pressure, with trust. You don't become who you are meant to be in a weekend. You become it through years of showing up, of holding on, of rebuilding sometimes from ashes. So here's the shift. Play the long game. Let go of needing it to happen fast. Focus on making it last. Because real growth isn't a sprint. It's an endurance. And endurance is made of something more honest than motivation. It's made of meaning. Why do you do what you do? What are you willing to repeat, even when it's boring, lonely, thankless? That's your foundation. So ask yourself, am I chasing a moment, or am I building a life? One will burn you out. The other will build you up. Whatever you do today, do it as if you'll be doing it for the next 10 years. Because you might. And when others fall off, you'll still be there. Quietly, steadily, becoming. You began this journey looking for change. But what you found was yourself. Not the version that performs. Not the version that pleases. But the one who shows up every day, even when it's hard, even when it's quiet, even when no one claps. You made small shifts. Tiny recalibrations in how you think, speak, act, and believe. And slowly they changed your posture in the world. You stopped chasing approval. You started honoring peace. You stopped waiting for the right time. You chose today. And maybe the world hasn't noticed yet. Maybe you're still climbing, still healing, still becoming. That's okay, because you're not here to impress them. You're here to align with something deeper, something older than applause, something louder than fear, something that says, this is who I am. This is how I rise. So keep going. Show up, even when the spark fades. Speak kindly, especially when no one else does. Move forward, even if the steps are small. Trust the silence, it's where your compass lives. Celebrate progress. It's what makes the path worth walking. And remember this, you don't need a miracle. You need momentum. You don't need to change your whole life today. You just need to shift by 1 degree. And tomorrow, 1 more. And before you know it, You're walking in a direction that feels like truth. That is transformation. Quiet, daily, unshakable,